everyone, to another episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much. Excited to get rolling here.
Yeah, and you brought company this week.
I did again. So we've talked to Dave Polacheck once before, and we have an awful cool topic lined up on skills this week. So let's plow into the market news and get to talking about skills and talent intelligence.
Yeah. Welcome, Dave. Good to have you back on the show. As those that don't know, Dave is a longtime advisor in the space and an alumni of the show. So, Dave, welcome. Good to have you. Want to maybe do a quick intro just so everyone knows a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to be back with you guys. I always enjoy our conversations. Dave Polacheck, been a longtime practitioner. Actually spent most of my 20-something years out in the field as an HR practitioner, owning HR technology landscapes and service provider networks and whatnot within the companies I worked at. And then a few years ago, started out on a consulting career and have had a great time working with a lot of different companies on everything from, overall HR strategy and structure to nuances of talent processes to shared services stand-ups and whatnot. And joined Julie about 6 months ago. We've been having a great time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good to have you back. And for those of you that aren't familiar, Dave joined us for a conversation on analytics the last time he was here. So had rave reviews for that, Dave. So we're happy to have you back. And if you haven't checked out that episode, please do get into that. And later on today, we're going to be talking skills and all things around the talent space, right? Talent intelligence. So, okay, so let's jump in. First, let's say happy Global Payroll Week, right? It is that time of year where we celebrate the professionals that pay the world and keep us all paid on time. So big round of applause for the global payroll professionals out there. We absolutely appreciate everything that you do. So, yes, go ahead, Julie.
No, I just said woohoo.
Yes, absolutely. We need a little sound. I think we could have stepped up our game, maybe had a little sound bite here, but we didn't. So I apologize. Anyway, okay. So be sure and get over to the GPMI, the Global Payroll Management Institute, for plenty of festivities and activities going on all week. There is thought leadership content coming out, articles. I saw one by our good friend Anita Latink today. There is, I believe, webinars most days of the week. I have one coming on Wednesday that is going to be unveiling really the results of the Getting the World Paid survey for 2023. Nathan North and I will be talking through that. So I'd love to have you join me at 11 a.m. on Wednesday for that. So congratulations to the global payroll professionals of the world. Congratulations also to the American Payroll Association and the Global Payroll Management Institute, both very important, critical organizations, sister organizations, if you will, within themselves, are now rebranding effective tomorrow, May 2nd, to Payroll.org, or the Payroll.org, I guess you could call it. So a little bit uneventful brand name, but hey, at least they're taking the step forward in their marriage, getting both organizations together, and I think continuing to do the great work they do to bring the awareness for the profession together. So excited for that. And I love the tagline they use too, the new one, the leader in payroll education. I would say that is a very true statement. They absolutely are the go-to when it comes to the payroll profession and the payroll education arena. Okay. And the other thing I would also point out too is they have a new payroll community. If you haven't had a chance to get involved in that as a member, it's you can find it at www.community.payroll.org. It's really been fantastic. I've enjoyed getting in there. If you know the payroll world, as many of you who listen do, it's a fantastic community that lifts each other up. And they have the APA and GPMI have created, the payroll org, the new payroll org, has created a community where folks can, digital community, if you will, to go in and connect and trade information. So be sure to take part in all that. Okay, so a little bit of news here, Julie. I got a couple of updates also in the global payroll world. If you're scoring at home, the first one is Multiplier and Wise have gotten together. If you're not familiar with either of these, Multiplier is one of the younger, newer global employer of record / global payroll providers in the space. And Wise, the Wise platform, is an app that I personally use in my global travels and global business dealings to move money. I pay my attorney there who's working on my citizenship in Greece through Wise. It's very helpful. It gives you the ability to really move money in multiple currencies very quickly at a very affordable rate and with very much like a PayPal style experience. So Multiplier and Wise have teamed up to make money movement much easier for their customers. They're going to support payments to freelancers and contractors and employees in 57 different currencies around the world. So very indicative of what you're seeing in the global payroll space and payroll in general, whereby payments, believe it or not, is getting very, very close to the payroll experience, such that I think these solutions are almost one and the same now, even though they are very different and very complex in their own ways. They're becoming very close together in terms of how they're being sold and adopted. So good stuff there.
There's been so many individual of these, Pete, that you've mentioned along the way that I know we've promised or threatened to have a conversation specifically about some of that. So we'll get that on the docket.
Yeah, we are. We are planning a global payroll, global EOR, global payments discussion soon. We're just trying to shape how to best do that. I'm almost thinking, Julie, it might end up being, I was literally thinking about it the other day, it might have to be multiple episodes. So I think this is a big topic. You're right. We have been shelving for a little while, and I think it's time we had this. So, yep.
Absolutely.
Coming right up. Okay. Probably the biggest news this week is the announcement. You and I were talking about this before, Julie, about Alight and Workday teaming up when it comes to global payroll again. So as you know, this is very interesting, because if you know Workday, you know they've been very much, I would say, I don't know if reluctance the word, but maybe they've just sort of kicked the can down the road on going to market with any one partner for anything, to be honest with you. I think they are very much about the ecosystem, as they should be, and they've been very much a provide a marketplace, provide the ecosystem, provide the platform, and let the buyers, let the users decide what they connect and where they use. So this is very interesting, right? This pairs Alight's deep pro services capability. They're a very well established Workday shop and Workday deployer and operator with application management services, and the only global payroll provider out there that could come to the table with something like that, in addition to proprietary global payroll capability. So I think, when people say, well, why not Payslip, or why not CloudPay, or why not Amitis? Why not Papaya, right? Workday has an investment in Papaya through the ventures portfolio. Well, again, it's that pro services capability. And I think at the end of the day, what what was very appealing to Workday is the ability to resell or sell their product into new locations and deploy into those new locations. And as you're out there, you're looking at the countries where they're launching: Benelux, Germany, Italy, Nordic, Spain, and Switzerland, all very important growth areas in the HCM ecosystem. So really big announcement here.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, the footprint and the areas that they're starting are, Alight's acquisition and GA's, kind of stronghold. The key, I think, to what you were saying there, Pete, is really the whole operator aspect and their strength as an operator. Folks that are more payroll practitioners might read that as the managed payroll services part, right? The pro, you were mentioning pro services, and that is different from being, the partnership ecosystem on the payroll side that Workday has today is really global payroll, third party connect, right? So the idea is the connectivity of the data and bringing the data in, and less of a focus in that partnership pool on some of what you would call pro serve, right? And so there is a fine line or a delineation between what is being announced here and what is already well established in the ecosystem of the third party payroll partners.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. When I say professional services here, what we mean is the deployment, the implementation of Workday, right? The ability for folks to go to a provider that is able to not only deploy the solution, right? Many times you're just going to an SI, a deployment partner, and then you're handing off, if you want, managed services to someone else. I think that's what really differentiates Alight here, is that they can do the professional services deployment aspect, but also continue down range, if you will, into the future with the client from a managed perspective. So,
right.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that shakes out, but I do see some confusion, right, from folks that are even very familiar within the Workday ecosystem, and who understand the payroll provider market to really understand, like, what does this mean, and what is the differences.
This is William Tincup, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Indeed FutureWorks. Ryan and I attended the conference last year, and we created a limited series for Indeed where we talked to their customers. Great stories around TA and how they use Indeed to the max. So check it out. It's Indeed FutureWorks 2024. You could search for it wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks.
Yeah. I think it really gives Workday, let's be honest, it gives them that. I mean, look at these countries, right? I mean, it just sort of speaks to their nemesis, right? Success factors. I think they need that capability to battle that, right? Germany, for example, is a stronghold for SAP and success factors. It's their backyard. And Workday's had some struggles, let's face it, dipping their toe into some of these European countries with their payroll capability. It hasn't been well received in some cases. So I think having a strong partner that can help supplement them is really, really, really important. And when they can deploy their product, even better, right?
Absolutely.
So very good.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yes. And more countries to come, as they've said. So look, one more thing before we get to, or one more update before we get to our topic of the week, and that is Unleash. I just came back from Unleash, the International Festival of HR, as they have called themselves, branded themselves. Congratulations to Mark Coleman, Kate Graham, and the whole team there. Always an amazing show and event. Lots of great networking, lots of great opportunities to see clients and new prospects and learn about things I hadn't, vendors I hadn't met yet. So all the good stuff that you would expect from an event, and of course in Vegas. So you come back nice and tired and your feet hurt, and I lost my voice. So it's going to be back. It's going to be back. But 3,000 people attended, I understand. So good turnout. I hadn't been to Unleash since before the pandemic. I had spoken in Amsterdam in 2018. So it was my first one back, and it was very healthy attendance and a very healthy market, right? I think we're seeing plenty of data throughout the week that says people are in fact spending on HCM, and VC hasn't slowed down, at all. I think George LaRoque put out Q1 numbers was the seventh largest quarter on record or something like that. Eight for dollars, eighth largest for number of deals. So there's plenty going, plenty of work being done in the space. And that's really exciting to hear. I ran into multiple buyers. It was refreshing this time not to speak to people who were telling me they were still trying to figure out core HR. So that was nice. Most of the practitioners I spoke to were already on a modern core HR system and really, unfortunately though, looking to supplement things that their core HCM wasn't doing. Right. Yep. You want to guess what the top three were, Julie, that they were looking to replace as part of that, the modules they wanted to replace?
Well, spoiler alert, it might tie into our topic a little bit today, right?
Well, it does in a roundabout way. So the top areas that when I listened to folks that said, hey, we're happy with our core HR, we're happy with the system, but we've got gaps that we're here looking to fill. Talent certainly rolled up to the top, and I'm sure and totally confident skills were, if I would have pecked into that, skills were, certainly a part of that, as we all know. Analytics, which not surprising, right? We've heard that from the Sapient report that analytics is angsty. Yeah. I still think those solutions are both. It's not that they're not enough. I think that they're just not as. I think that maybe the roles aren't keeping up with how to use these systems, and some of them are a little bit difficult to use. So I think that's part of it. Yeah. And then I think also I heard wellness a lot. There's so much appetite for wellness, and that goes into a lot of different tangents that I think that was probably key. And again, as with most of these HR technology events, not a lot of payroll was there. I would have liked to have seen more, but maybe also we've got 2 weeks away. We've got the APA Congress, so I'm sure folks were really gearing up for that more on that in that world, but. Again, I'll tell you what the areas that bubbled up as I walked around. I looked at new solutions and I looked at the stuff there. And that was exactly what you just said. Skills. I know it's our topic today. Skills, talent intelligence, and absolutely AI. AI everything, right? Everyone had AI incorporated into what they're doing, as they should. And there were a lot of questions around that. A lot of the buyers that we're talking to, particularly those that were telling me, the things that they were out looking for, they had a lot of questions about AI. Like, should we be going so hard on it maybe right away? What's it mean for our organization? How should we be thinking about it from a privacy perspective? Like, there was just so many different questions in that world. So I'm excited that we have Dave, because I'd love to dig into this a little bit more and certainly get his perspective coming off of the analytics world. So Julie, do you want to maybe take us through kind of a conversation here that we've thought about with Dave on his perspective, and I know he's got some new content coming up around this as well.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. And I think, Dave, we've been talking about skills and talent intelligence an awful lot lately, and focusing specifically, as Pete said, at these conferences and other engagements. There's a lot of focus on how do I improve the search for new talent, so attraction or keep talent, retention, or engage and promote talent, and move folks around. And it just seems like every lever that clients are trying to pull in the talent space has some sort of a link or a connection back to skills and talent intelligence. So I know you introduced yourself a little bit, but this is a topic that you've been preparing more and more conversations on. And what is it about the dynamics of the market that kind of caught your attention and had you thinking about focusing some conversation around talent and skills?
Well, certainly, yeah. Thanks, Julie. I mean, it's a really interesting topic, and everybody's talking about it, right? So every HR practitioner feels like if they don't have skills-oriented technologies, particularly ones that are touted as intelligent technologies, that they are behind the eight ball, right? And the reality is the hype usually is about a handful of companies and a handful of vendors that are out ahead, and that over the next, if this hype all comes true, that over the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see the real migration. Just like with cloud, it was 10 years ago or longer that we started talking about cloud-based HR. And it's really only now that you're talking, Steve, you're pointing out that most of the companies you talk to had already made that move, right? But this is, 10, 15 years into that. So recognizing that, I think what I found really curious is actually, Julie, when I joined the team here at HR Palmer, and that was going through a hiring process. Now I've been following this industry for a while and seeing these technologies emerge, and with a level of sort of excitement on the one hand, a little bit of skepticism on the other. When I came to join the HR Palmer team, I reached a certain point in the process. We'd had a bunch of conversations, and hey, Dave, in order to actually make an offer, we need to have you apply, right? So we were a little backwards, but I went and I applied. And I'm not going to name the technology because I think they all have some similar problems at really the user experience layer. And that's that I went in, I applied, and I submitted my resume. And of course, it parsed my resume. That technology has been around for quite a long time now. And then it took me to a screen where it had inferred a bunch of skills. And it said, well, Dave, we think you might have the following 15 or 20 skills. And when I looked at that list and I moused over, they were just 1 or 2 word phrases without any descriptions. And I thought about, kind of the user experience, almost journey mapping myself to say, what's on my mind right now as I'm going through this process? How am I going to use this system to capture the skills that I have and articulate to this prospective employer the skills that I have? And so many questions arose as I was doing that. Am I going to take 10 minutes and kind of validate what it suggested? Or am I going to take an hour and really start cataloging 25 years of experience into a long list of skills? And what does it mean that these 1 or 2 word phrases have now been attached to me? Are those really skills? Are those things I've likely been exposed to? Kind of what do they mean? And then interestingly for me, it suggested that I'm a Java programmer or that I have Java programming skills. I thought, well, that's interesting. I don't. And so then you kind of think that through. You think, well, okay, if I'm a candidate, now I deleted that one, by the way. But if I'm a candidate trying to put my best foot forward, and you as the employer through your technology suggest to me that I have a whole long list of skills, and some of them I have, some of them I don't have, what am I going to do if I'm wanting to put my best foot forward? How many candidates will click to delete the ones that don't apply to them? And for those that don't and leave that data in there, like if I had left in there that I'm a Java programmer, then what does that do to the data set that will be used to train the AI over time? Is there going to be some sort of false associations that are going to inform how it infers somebody else's skills? So I really started having that user experience actually is what really triggered my sort of deeper interest in a level of kind of skepticism about this. So we started, spending some time thinking about it.
I wonder how many folks in that situation then, start to fret about, the white space that is all of the potential skills that it doesn't attach automatically. And, and then,
that's,
worry about
that's where my
right?
brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where my brain goes, Julie. You know, how many times I've filled those things out and I've thought like, wow, none of this really scratches the surface on what I am or what I've done. Like, you know, it just does everyone categorize things the same way, right? How many taxonomies are there now? It's yeah, you're right. How much stuff goes unearthed, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think what it goes to is kind of a general point, which is sort of stating the obvious. And that's that while we're using the word intelligence and we're using the word skills, we're not talking about technology that's coming out into the real world, observing us, parsing our behavior, determining what skills in some empirical sense that we have. We're talking about software that's written to process data and to make predictions based on data. So the inferences it's making about me aren't because it knows anything about me, right? It's doing a 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, for those that understand that reference, with things that are words and roles that it found in my job history, and attaching that through its AI. And I think there's a ton of potential here. So while I'll sound like a skeptic today, I think that once we get through some of the initial hurdles, maybe some data standards get applied or some industry standards on how we're treating this data. I think there's a ton of potential here. The way I like to think about it is that skills data, as it's being used today, is really like tags, right? It's just a way of tagging people that something about talent management for Dave, right? And something about payroll for Julie, so that as I'm searching, Julie's going to pop up in a payroll related search, right? And other topics.
Before we move on, I need to let you know about my friend Mark Pfeffer and his show, People Tech. If you're looking for the latest on product development, marketing, funding, big deals happening in talent acquisition, HR, HCM, that's the show you need to listen to. Go to the Work Defined Network, search up People Tech, Mark Pfeffer. You can find him anywhere.
This is William Tincup, and I'd like to direct you to a wonderful limited series podcast that Ryan and I recorded live at the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit. We sat down with 20 recruiting and TA leaders from around the world to hear what today's best recruiters are doing to stay sharp, stay relevant, and stay ahead. It's called The Talent Shift. You'll love it. You'll find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Listen, like, review, share. Do you.
Payroll, so that people and opportunities can find each other. And then processes have to get designed that include some human validation of what does it mean that we have the word payroll attached to the candidate Julie, those kind of things. So I just think it's really interesting to kind of pick this stuff apart, because while most of us think that black box of AI is beyond our understanding, I think, and so it's hard to even know what questions to ask. The questions you can ask are at the end user layer, where somebody like me is going in and entering or validating skills. And then on the flip side of that, a hiring manager or a recruiter is looking at a list of candidates, and that list of candidates is sorted and filtered and whatnot. And how are they using that data and the output of the AI in order to make talent decisions? And how many in the mix are false positives or false negatives that are
I love in the technologies that I'm seeing that they're making it where the jobs and the roles and the opportunities are almost finding the worker, or will presumably in the future. I think that's a great step, right? A lot of us young in our career, right? We have all these things that we've done, or maybe we want to do, but then we don't know how to connect the dots on it and find a proper path that maybe fits us. And so I'm hoping to see some of this technology really help younger people in their careers, earlier in their careers, figure out their path that they might not be thinking of otherwise.
So
absolutely, and there's career pathing that's baked into this stuff. So there's a ton of that kind of potential.
Dave, thanks for thinking about sharing, how you started from almost your own journey map, right, into this topic. And I know we're gonna flip into the, okay, so how is HR using that, right? The other lens, not the voice of the employee, but maybe the voice of HR type of lens on how to use it. But I almost didn't want to go too far along in the conversation without just a little bit of name dropping of what sorts of technologies tend to be called out in in this space, because there sometimes you can have a whole conversation about an area and not even remotely have help folks key in on what sort of players are big in this space. I can rattle off a few, or do you want to take a shot at a few?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you've got Gloat, you've got Eightfold AI, you've got Fuel 50. It depends on where in the talent cycle you're looking. There's tools like Seek Out that's really geared more towards talent acquisition, although they also provide great support for talent, internal talent marketplaces. And then you've got the big guys. So Workday Skills Cloud is coming up, and a ton of potential there as well. So there's a number of players, and certainly we'll all see Josh Bershon talking about these as well. I think so the technologies are definitely moving quick, and that's a handful of the ones that I'm seeing. How about you?
Yeah.
Pete, any others?
Sorry, go ahead.
Others you want to toss out there, Pete?
Yeah, I just got introduced and had dinner with the team at CrossCheck recently to talent intelligence solution platform. Has a number of different areas it helps. That's one I've gotten to started to peck around with. So okay. Yeah, there are a lot of them out there that are very dynamic, doing some really cutting edge stuff. So awesome. check them out.
Well, folks that listen to us will know that there's certainly no intent at being either endorsing or being all inclusive as we start to throw some names out. But that helps us. Yes. That helps us at least get in the ballpark here. So maybe Dave, I think what would be helpful, because I think we're preparing some topics and some information for a webinar here later in the month that will address specifically HR practitioners and HR and help give them some thoughts about how to get the most out of talent data and tools in this world that's really very emerging, right? Emergent and kind of a hot topic, and everybody's thinking and talking about it. So what can we leave HR listeners with that will help them on thinking about what to do with skills and talent? So can I dive into one area and have you give a little bit of insights? Got a hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we talk about talent and skills, one of the first foundational items is just having that sort of data or information in your purviews, right? And collecting it or doing something with it, like you described. So, what sorts of things are you seeing, or would you suggest that HR practitioners need to think about when you're looking at recognizing skills and incorporating that into your HR data sets?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll notice I try and avoid just referring to this whole new market as skills. It's skills data. I don't think we actually know exactly what it means yet. And I think that's the sort of foundational question that I'm curious to see answered. And certainly we're trying to answer it in the article that we're about to publish, and in that webcast you mentioned we're going to be doing in a few weeks. But I think that a key thing to remember is that it is a different type of data. So we've all, most of us have had some conversation with some typically learning and development person who's got a real passion for the terminology around skills, knowledge, abilities, competencies. And if you get them talking, there's real differentiation between these different words. And they're scientists as it relates to, as I mentioned earlier, kind of parsing out human behavior and attributes and whatnot. This is a whole different arena. This is data coming from a lot of different sources, including inference from AI, but also including things like my user experience and everybody else's, of just adding data to the mix based on what you think a good word to describe a thing you know how to do is. Some of it is coming from formal assessment data. Some of it is coming from more formal sources, but just recognizing that there's a whole mix of data. And I think that's important in designing processes around it, so that we're not taking recommendations from technology that's based on this loosely formed data as though it is gospel, but we're taking it as useful and directional, and then wrapping more human-oriented processes around it. So I think that's one of the first big takeaways, is just recognizing we're not talking about skills. We're talking about a broad category of data that's been labeled skills. And as you think about designing HR processes, it should have that in mind.
Yeah, that's great insight. And when you're thinking about that data, so many other things come to mind too, right? In HR that we've kind of built HR around. Competencies being another one of those, right? So HR is trying to do something with this, with these knowledge, and figure out, how am I looking at knowledge or skills or abilities, and how do I start to, maintain those, or what are the many different taxonomies that I might have already existing in my environment, that address or set some sort of a foundation for skills data? What are the challenges you're seeing there?
Well, I think a big one, and this relates to a lot of talent processes, I think, is that we try and sort of spread the peanut butter across the entire organization, try and apply a practice across our entire enterprise, when really it requires a more surgical and focused effort. I think competencies is a great example of that. So find ways to use the skills data for what it is, but then also look at those parts of your organization where a real depth of skill and competency in a particular area is really important to know about every employee in that area, and do the good scientific, if you want to call it that, competency work in those parts of your workforce where those skills matter. So I'm thinking about consulting or software firms where you're continually reassembling teams, and you need to know exactly which contributions one team member can make versus another, whether it's, this person's a great front end person, this person's all about databases. I need to know the difference between their skills in that respect. You all know I worked for a big tire company for a while, and there are certain things around compounding rubber that are really specific to the industry, and nobody learns it in school, so you got to learn it on the job, and we want to track your progress on those competencies. So these are areas where the real specifics of your skills really matter. They may apply to pay, but they definitely apply to and predict our ability to get the job done for a client or in a new product development. So that's where I think there is still a use for those OD or L&D folks that are maybe watching the skills market with concern for their own job security. There's absolutely a home for them and a really important vital function in getting the good competency modeling science applied where it's going to really add business value.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You mentioned a sample right around some of the tire business that pointed out a nuance, right, in a level of data or a specific type of skill or skills data, and it just leads me to think a lot about data and capturing data versus really having any type of intelligent insights around what sorts of experiences or what level of knowledge someone has. And that to me is just one of the big challenges of figuring out how to use this technology to our best advantage. Is, we can capture some of the data, but what really does that tell us about the degree or depth of skills or specific knowledge areas? How do you think we can maybe look at balancing intelligence and experience better as we think about taking this journey?
Hi, I'm Stephen Rothberg.
And I'm Jeanette Leeds.
And together, we're the co-hosts of the High Volume Hiring Podcast.
Are you involved in hiring dozens or even hundreds of employees a year? If so, you know that the typical sourcing tools, tactics, and strategies, they just don't scale.
Yeah. Our bi-weekly podcast features news, tips, case studies, and interviews with the world's leading experts about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to high volume hiring.
Make sure to subscribe today.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a real dilemma, especially, and I guess I'm probably starting to repeat myself a little bit on kind of the wide mix of data sources that we're mashing together and assuming it can give us intelligent answers. I think the big thing is wrapping, as I said before, wrapping really human processes. Now, I came out of GE back in the day, and I really value the dialogue that happened around any individual's, and really every individual's skills, abilities, career trajectory. That dialogue that happens is, I think, super vital to maintaining and establishing the culture of an organization. When we talk about a team or a leader as that person's leader, an HR team, as we talk about the people in our organization and the competencies or the capabilities they have, we're not just talking about that person. We're aligning ourselves about what good looks like and what behaviors we tolerate, what behaviors we want to reward. That dialogue is actually how culture manifests in organizations. And so I love the idea of the technology as an enabler or an enhancement, but it's to a dialogue that needs to continue happening. So that's a bit of a soapbox, but I feel like there's a balance to be struck here, and recognizing that the technology can help inform our decisions, but making those decisions in dialogue with one another as leaders in our organizations is actually how the culture gets, kind of brought to life.
And that actually lends,
Yeah.
there's actually a broader aspect of culture as well, right? And whether or not your culture is going to be a good fit, or how it will fit with using tools that bring more transparency, or tools that bring more churn, right? Or tools that are really designed and focused to having internal talent be more mobile, across their career, in an organization that maybe tends to move people more hierarchically, right? And so there's a leadership aspect of the culture, and whether or not you're ready for, what you're getting yourself into, right? That these tools and moving in this direction will bring.
Absolutely. And finding that sweet spot when you know that this technology and new process you wrap around it can kind of help nudge the culture forward, but that you're not, that you are actually ready for that nudge. In some organizations, like you're saying, where it's real hierarchical, you're used to kind of more of you get that tap on the shoulder when it's time for you to get promoted kind of approach, as opposed to folks being empowered to kind of grow their own careers. If the culture is not ready for employees to take hold and for the talent processes to be somewhat democratized, then these kind of technologies are going to, they're going to fall on their face in those companies. I don't mean generally, but in those companies where the culture is not ready. And as well, it's not just about the culture of the company. That's certainly one piece of it. But the other is, if you're in an organization that operates on a pretty stable basis, you got manufacturing organizations that are structured and maintain stable. You're not in a super innovative mode in product development, so there's not a lot of new innovation that you need to kind of churn talent through project teams to develop. If you're more of a stable organization, again, more hierarchical in your structure, it may not be the best fit to apply some of these talent technologies. Now, they certainly can be informative on the learning side, and perhaps that's where they're best applied. But in terms of creating talent mobility, it's kind of be careful what you ask for.
I feel like we're coming full circle here, right, on the conversation when we start talking about readiness, because you really, then need to get into the conversation, or at least acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of activity out there, but how quickly are folks really adopting and using these tools, and are they doing it, in a way that leads to the results that they're looking for? And so, as with anything, you when you go to either a provider or one of these tool organizations with leading tools, or a consultancy that is going to help you deploy leading practices, those practices are always going to push the envelope, right? And go toward, kind of the furthest extension of, what you could do with talent and skills. And many organizations need to step into that a little bit more cautiously. Am I being a little bit too cautious or pessimistic about readiness and moving into the talent and skills intelligence area?
That's a great point, Julie. I love where you're going there. And like it's so easy. We've all seen leaders make the kind of bright, shiny object decisions where they go to a conference or they watch a webinar and somebody they respect is talking about some cool new thing happening and they want to apply it immediately in their organization. But, whether it's these types of tools or any others, there's always the benefit to be gained from a conversation. Are we ready for this? This is cool. And I'd love to have on my resume that I brought this technology or this new practice to my organization, but is my organization ready for it? Is this the right moment for it?
What are your thoughts, Pete, when you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think everything that, we say this a lot, but it's all about the use cases you're trying to solve, right? It's like, Dave, is it safe to say, when we think about things like AI and maybe even RPA, a lot of folks are like, oh, we want to do that. But it's like, you can't just sort of do it at scale, at wholesale, right? At scale at first. You've really got to be doing it is not the right word, but applying it against key use cases. And I think putting it through your filters and shaping it for your organization is always key, no matter what the technology is. And same for the change, right? It kind of goes without saying.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've read Laszlo Bock's book, Work Rules, it's just a lot of great examples there of, you got to run the experiment in your organization, which means piloting, doing the hard work of design of experiment, and then piloting these kind of tools and others before you decide whether it's it's going to work for the entire enterprise.
Yeah. I had an interesting conversation with a buyer this week, an enterprise firm, and we were talking about, I can't remember what sort of technology we were talking about exactly, but I was asking them about change management, right? And culture and all of this, right? And it was funny because the head of, the lady I was speaking to was sort of their director or VP over like HR systems and HR data, people data. And one of the things we were talking about was on the change management side was she said, sometimes for change management for us as a retailer, they have a very heavy retail population, hourly population. She said, our management likes to sort of learn things by doing it. And so she said, a lot of our change management boils down to guardrailing people against doing the wrong thing. And I thought that was really interesting. At first, I was like, wow, what a reactive way. But then she said, but that's how we have to do it, right? We can't count on people stopping and learning and taking a class in a lot of ways. So we have to provide them with what information we can, provide them with the training we can, and then guardrail it so that they can't mess it up. And I thought that was sort of a different way to look at it. But it's interesting that I think that change and change management and culture and all of those things take a different fit differently for every organization, and shaping that to around what your employees are best going to perform with is always important as well.
Yeah, it's a great insight. I love that.
So Dave,
yeah.
I think
thought it was different.
That there's a webinar coming up, and you're going to push out some materials. Folks that are interested in finding out a little bit more, or following this conversation in more depth, what should they be looking forward to?
Yeah, well, so we've got a blog article coming out in the next couple of weeks here that's going to kind of walk through. A lot of the stuff we've covered. We'll talk about that, and then later in May we'll have our webinar, you and I, talking about this topic with a little bit more, kind of conceptual framework around the decision making and whatnot. And would welcome to have folks participating in that, joining in the conversation and poking at us with questions and whatnot. That's coming up on May 23rd.
And Pete, I think we have a nice segue here because awesome. We ended with change management, and we're thinking that we might be having some more change management conversations coming up shortly. So.
Yes. We're working on that. That is going to be a very nice segue. Hopefully we can get that lined up. So where can folks join that May 23rd webinar on heronpalmer.com?
Look for that. Yeah, look for
that.
Is that
right?
Or actually reach out to Dave or I, maybe in LinkedIn, or you,
okay.
or wherever, and we'll get a link.
Yes.
I'm not sure exactly where that is available
Perfect.
yet. We're just getting that finalized. So.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. What else? Anything else going on, Dave, in your world? How can folks connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely find us on LinkedIn. What we can do is we can also attach links to the upcoming blog and the webinar to information about this podcast, I'd assume. So I'd welcome folks reaching out for that. We're talking to a lot of companies on a lot of topics related to this, but also, the traditional like tech selections, picking their system integrators, overall HR dashboard. So there's a lot of topics we're covering with our clients, and would welcome reach outs for anybody interested in having that conversation with us, even just to start out as a sounding board conversation. So you can find me on LinkedIn, as well as Julie, and would love to hear from folks.
Yeah, awesome. Julie, what do you got going on?
I thought we were just going to get to what's next, right? So next week, I'm actually going to be heading to Chicago, and we'll be working a little bit with Ceridian and Alight instances. So it's rare. Usually when I head out, I'm heading out for client-specific contexts, and so I'll be just catching up with the both of them next week. And then the APA Congress coming up right mid-month, which that's a perfect transition over to you, I think. What do you got coming up?
Yes, absolutely. And everything, right? No, this week, Global Payroll Week, be sure to join all the festivities there. I'll be on Wednesday, May 3rd at 11 a.m. with Nathan North for a fireside chat. So make sure you join in on that. We're going to talk about the Getting the World Paid survey. Next week, I'm going to head out to Austin, Texas for the Zoholics Analyst Day, the Zoho, if you know the Zoho ERP cloud platform. I'm a customer and an analyst, so I'm excited to be attending from that perspective. And then, of course, the APA Congress, the Super Bowl of Payroll, May 16th to the 19th in Denver. Everything's going to be going on there for me personally. A lot going on with all of the major vendors in the marketplace, so be sure to be there and join in on all the fun. It's an exciting time. I think that's it for today, right? Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us. Julie, as always, thank you.
For the time, it's great to be able to chat with you guys. Always engaging.
Yes, likewise. Good to see you guys. Take care, everyone.